Hello, everyone, and welcome to the unit number 3 of the second module of the EnPhasis MOOC. In this unit, we will focus on value network maps, and especially we'll aim at showcasing the added value of this tool. There are 3 guiding questions for this unit that will help us in the pedagogic journey. First, we want to show which information can be extracted from a value network map. Second, we want to help you to interpret a value network map. And third, we want to show the added value of the tool and explain different ways of using it. To help us learn more about value network maps, we will use one of the case studies from EnPhasis, case study number 9, that is focused on the organic dairy farming sector in Ireland. This case study was led by Teagasc. I will first give you a short introduction about the case study, so you have background information, and then we will dive into the value network map itself and use it in different ways. First, a few information about the case study context. So organic dairying is still a small sector in Ireland, but it is growing. And what is particularly interesting is that it has multiple environmental benefits regarding climate, biodiversity, water quality, but also animal welfare. And on top of that, the economic results of organic dairy farmings are quite positive. So it seems like an interesting transition pathways for farmers. However, there are a few key challenges that the sector is facing, and it was the goal of this case study to address these challenges. Here I'm listing 2 key challenges, and you will see that the value network map can help us understand them and understand how they are embedded in the system. 2 key challenges are, for example, that the conversion period during which the farmer is already asked to work with organic standards, but cannot yet supply its milk to the organic market. And the second challenge would be to deliver knowledge and training to farmers in conversion when they are shifting from a conventional to an organic dairy farming system. So in order to understand what is happening in this case study, the case study leaders had to map all the actors that are playing a role in the system. And it amounted to 22 actors. So first you have the organic dairy farmers who are at the center of the system we're talking about, but there are also the farm unions, the farm advisors, the conventional dairy farmers who could decide to become organic, an organic dairy cooperative that will collect the milk, and later in the value chain, the retailers, whether they are in Ireland or international, as well as the processors that are processing food, in this case milk, but also feed for the animals. And both of them exist as organic or conventional processors. Beside that, there are actors beyond the value chain, so that includes the banks and the insurances, services to farmers, agricultural education and training, public bodies, the organic certification bodies, different government levels at the regional, national, and European level, medias, both farming media and general media, consumers in Ireland or abroad, and NGOs. Here I'm showing you the value network map that was prepared by case study 9 leader, and you see these 22 actors as well as the flows that interconnect them. To make this map, the case study leaders had to do interviews and collect documentation, and they have listed 4 types of flows. Knowledge flows are here in blue. Financial flows are here in pink. Hierarchical flows and laws are in brown, and commodity flows are in orange. You will immediately notice that although we are talking about milk production, commodities flow is just one little part of the system. And so the goal of the value network map is to look at all these different types of flows and where do they exist in the system and how do they interconnect actors? How does that influence the possibility of a transition pathway? I'm going to present 4 different modalities for the interpretation of a value network map. First, we'll look at the different types of flows. Second, we'll look at the distribution of these different types of flows. We will look at the distance between actors. And finally, we will analyze the density and the level of integration within the value network map. One thing at a time, we start with the type of flow. And here I've extracted from the value network map only the knowledge flows. This is something you can always do. You could have the 4 types of flow on one map, but you could also separate them and analyze them independently from one another. That's the first level of analysis. You will notice here that there are different types of arrows. So in one case, they go from one actor to another one. And in other cases, they go both ways. So this means there is a knowledge flow, a knowledge exchange that is going both ways. And you might also notice that there are cascades. Knowledge starts from one actor, goes to the next one, then goes to the next one, then goes to the next one. So here with these actors that are still visible on the map, that's not all the actors, it's a subsection of the value network map. You will see that all these actors are connected through knowledge flows. Here, it's a second focus in the same map. So in this case, I've reduced the map to only 4 actors, and I've kept the arrows, all the different type of flows that exist between them. So you will notice there are a different number of flows between 2 actors, different types of flows. In this case, knowledge, financial, commodities, and hierarchical flows. And you will already start to notice a certain density. There are several arrows between actors. You can also notice that the type of flows between 2 actors, for example, here, the organic dairy farmers and their feed processors, are not the same type of flows that in between the organic dairy farmers and the farm unions. So this will tell you something about the type of relationships that actors have. Here is the second focus. So the second way of using the value network map, by looking at the distance between actors. What I did here is I placed the organic dairy farmers in the center, and I placed then actors around that were directly connected to organic dairy farmers through an arrow. And then further away are actors that are indirectly connected to organic dairy farmers because there are flows that connect them to intermediary actors that then are connected to the dairy farmers themselves. So the map is here reorganized to show the distance between actors and to show you some relationships are direct and some other are indirect. You can also notice with the arrows I've kept as an example here that an indirect relationship could happen through different type of flows. In this case, there is a hierarchical flow, laws, subsidies, and then there is a knowledge flow. So these are all very precious information if you want to think about your system transformation. Here is the third focus we can use, and I'm presenting the distribution of flows. So what we've done here is we've counted the number of arrows in each case studies and classified them by type of flows and calculated a percentage of them. So you can notice the contrast between the case studies. And in the case we are looking at, case study 9, there is a relatively similar proportion of the 4 types of flows. But this is not the case in all case studies. Not all case studies have all 4 types of flows, and it can be in some case, for example, here in case study 4, that then one type of flow will be much more significant. So again, this is something really informative for designing systems changes. And finally, I want to tell you about the density and integration analysis that we've done in EnPhasis. So here again, you have the different case studies, and you have several indicators that we have calculated. First, we have counted the number of actors represented. And here it goes from 9 to 31 actors. This is partly related to the boundaries of your system. How large is the system you're looking at? But this is also related to its density, its complexity. Second, you have the flows density. And to calculate this indicator, we have counted the number of arrows, whether they were including 1, 2, 3, or 4 flows. And here again, you see that the number of arrows is quite significantly different. That's what I call the density. The number of flows that connect actors, the number of relationships within your system. You can notice that there is no correlation between the number of actors represented and the number of arrows and the density. So you could have a small, very dense system. You could have a large, very dense system. You could have a small, not so dense system. This gives you a lot of information about your case again. And finally, in the last lines, you will see the flows integration. Here we have differentiated between arrows that had only one type of flow. If you remember in the subsections of the maps I presented, we had sometimes only one arrow between actors. And in some other case, we had 2 or 3, sometimes 4 different arrows. That's when the relationship between 2 actors includes knowledge, hierarchy, commodity, so different aspects are included in the relationship. And here again, you can see the difference between case studies is very significant. There are case studies where most relationships are based on one type of flow, while other case studies have a lot of integrated flows. So the level of complexity there is definitely higher. To summarize this 4th analysis that we've done, here is a little recap. So first, actors are interconnected to one other actor or to many other actors. And this tells you something about the degree of density, a dense map. And second, there is a layering of different types of flow within a map. And because of that, you will have hotspots of density And you will see that actors are connected through one of various types of flows. This is the level of flows integration. So these were 4 different interpretation methods. You can combine them, and each of them gives you a different set of information from the value network map. So first we looked at the types of flows. Second, we looked at the distribution of flows. We looked at the distance between actors. And finally, we analyzed the density and level of integration in the map. To finish, I would like to emphasize 2 different modalities for using value network maps. In the first modality, you use value network maps to visualize flows. In this case, it's very smart to choose the format of your map according to what you want to show or what you want to look at. So you could do that from a multi-stakeholder perspective. That's the first map I showed you. It shows the system on a flat surface. But you could also organize your map from and to one specific actors. That's the map reorganized when we had the dairy farmers in the middle. The second modality, beyond visualization, will be assessment. And as we've seen, there are a couple of indicators you can calculate, you can measure to assess the flows in your case study. So that's where we looked at the density, the type of flows, etc. To finish, I would like to show you here the different value network maps that were done by the case studies. And this illustrates what I just said. The value network maps can look different depending on the purpose that you will use them for. Thank you very much and good continuation with the MOOC.